Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo.
Yes.
No, he should have been inhibited there.
Yes.
Because it's clear.
Now, sir, what are the effects of this? Because clearly, I mean, it's unprecedented. I can't recall, unless you can recall another instance in the past when the executive has not followed. In effect, the executive branch did not follow an order of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Has there ever been a case, as long as,
No,
as far as you can
I
remember?
don't remember. I've been here for quite some time.
This has never happened before.
I have never seen it happen before.
Yes.
I've never seen it happen before. The problem here is there are short-term and long-term effects.
Let's talk about the short-term effects first.
Short-term effects, first, if the president does not obey an order of the Supreme Court, it will give opportunities for other people not to obey also orders of the Supreme Court. So the system will be upset.
Because the president, in effect, didn't follow because his alter ego,
Of course.
which is the DOJ secretary, his cabinet member, didn't follow.
And dilemma
Yes.
will not give anybody a dilemma unless she has been ordered by the president or she's sought permission from the president on matters of this nature.
Yes, and
So,
a decision this big, I'm sure if I were in her position, if I were the Justice Secretary, I would also clear it with higher headquarters.
I know.
Absolutely.
And I don't think Pinoy would have allowed Dilima to issue a dilemmatic refusal to enforce the order of the Supreme Court. Maybe Pinoy may be excused, but Dilima is a lawyer.
Yes.
She teaches some subjects in law in some of the colleges here in Metro Manila.
So, sir, as you said, what happens then when the executive branch, which is supposed to carry out, enforce Supreme Court orders, when the executive branch, for whatever reason, defies it and doesn't want, let's say, doesn't want to follow?
Well,
where does this lead to? I mean, what are the legal remedies here?
it can lead to impeachment.
Okay.
Because I'm almost certain that sometime in January next year, there will be a serious impeachment complaint against the incumbent president. Other than leading to impeachment, it will disturb the different institutions of this country. As a matter of fact, Senator Honasan has said, though he does not see any move to destabilize the system from the standpoint of the military establishment, but he said that for the administration to continue doing this will be tempting the fates.
Like, sir, how would this work out? Let's say, okay, this TRO on former President Arroyo, and on the watch list order for her, preventing her from leaving. Okay, so the Supreme Court came out with this decision, and it was stopped by the agents of the Bureau of Immigration. Yes. What if the former president had gone to the, let's say, to the police and said, okay, you guys are supposed to, you guys are sworn to uphold the law, and the Supreme Court already has an order. It's your duty bound to follow the Supreme. I mean, if you're a policeman or a soldier, where does that put you now? I mean, am I going to follow the Supreme Court, or do I follow? I mean, I'm also part of the executive branch.
Knowing the police and the military establishment,
how does
the
it work?
choice will be quite easy.
Yes.
They will not obey President Arroyo.
Yes.
They'll obey Dilima.
Yes.
Because they will try to be sure that they will not be relieved or removed.
No, but every soldier, every policeman, upon donning the uniform, that's part of their oath,
of course,
to
that's
protect the Constitution.
part of their duties.
Yes.
But knowing the history of the police establishment, the military establishment in the Philippines, there will be no policeman or member of the military establishment unless he wants to risk. And I don't say anyone who will risk this stage in time.
Let's say, sir, there was a police, an officer, or whatever, policeman who really felt that his oath to the flag and the Constitution really superseded his loyalty to his superiors, whoever that may be. Let's say if someone took it upon themselves, if a group took it upon themselves to do this, to enforce that Supreme Court ruling. Yes.
One thing definitely
How would
certain,
that- yes.
after Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo has left the country, these people will be in serious trouble. They'll have to run for their lives because they'll likely be suspended and dismissed.
So it really
by
is
the
a constitutional crisis
Yes,
on all
definitely.
levels, like even from the enforcement side, like in this case, a policeman or a soldier.
Yes.
Where do I put, who do I follow now, right? I mean,
Right. But there are people in the military establishment and also in the police establishment who might just do what you've been saying, no? Because I know a number of people in the military establishment and the police who would do that. But you need to bring them together in order to risk. You cannot have just a few people
It really
enforce the Supreme Court order.
And it's a very, if I were in their shoes, it would be very scary, very, very frightening prospect because, of course, as you said, the consequences of that to them,
Yes,
professionally and personally, would be
and
serious.
to their families.
Their families, absolutely.
But if I were one of their lawyers, fortunately for this administration, I'm not one of the lawyers of Gloria, I could have brought her out of the country.
No, okay. If
with
you
an
were
order of the Supreme Court.
If you were the lawyer of former President Arroyo, how would you have handled this whole thing?
Upon receipt of the order,
The TRO.
TRO.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, I'll schedule a trip of the former president in Naiya at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
A commercial flight. Commercial flight.
Commercial
Yeah.
flight. There will be a group going there on the car of the former president and into rush, but actually she's not there. At 1 o'clock, she flies out of the country from the Macapagal International Airport on a private plane.
Now, some of people in our camp would say that that's an indication of guilt. So by leaving, then under those circumstances, then it's like admitting, hey, I'm guilty.
They do not know their law. There is an order of the Supreme Court. How could that be a confession of guilt?
But like the flight, just
Yeah,
the general perception
That
of
is
flight.
not flight. Because they claim that she needs medical treatment. There is an order of the highest court of the land. How could it be flight? They're not reading their law very well. That's their problem.
Sure. Yeah.
They should read their law very well,
Yeah.
especially the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that kind of interpretation is out of this world, which leads to a lot of speculation.
Yeah. What are the long-term effects of this? So we talk about short-term, as you said, that there could be some serious consequences for the officials involved, like Secretary De Lima has been given time
Yes.
to explain to the Supreme Court why she should not be held in contempt. That's so I don't know how that's going to turn out, but and as you said, there could be on the part of the executive branch, there could be some also serious repercussions on this act of theirs in defiance of the Supreme Court order.
Yes.
Short-term effects.
The short-term effects, of course, will be if the Supreme Court declares Secretary De Lima in contempt of court.
Okay, when that happens, what are the possible consequences for the Justice Secretary?
Well, she could be sent to jail. No?
That's
And
serious.
of
Yes.
course.
Okay.
In order, and the BID people who prevented the former president from leaving, they'll be placed there until the time that they'll allow the former president to leave the country. And that's the time the contempt order will be lifted.
Yes.
And it's probable that she could be suspended by the Supreme Court from the practice of law. And if she could be suspended from the practice of law, that means that Pinoy has to appoint a new Secretary of Justice.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
see, these are the short-term implications.
Okay.
The long-term implications are too horrendous to imagine.
Which is actually more worrying because I think the issue now is not whether you're pro Gloria Arroyo or anti Gloria Arroyo. The
Yes.
issue is here are institutions. Am I not
That's true.
is
These
this
are
not correct?
institutional issues.
Yes.
And I have my own personal feelings about the former president. I've said so in many articles I've written in my book, but this goes beyond our personal attitudes with respect to this particular question. It has something to do with the Constitution and the preservation of Philippine institutions. If you don't observe the Constitution and the Philippine institutions, you're going to upset the whole apple cart.
Yes.
Are they prepared to do that?
And really the stability of society rests on those pillars.
Yes, you bet.
On the notion or thought that anyone or a citizen can run to the highest court in the land and seek legal remedy, legal redress, and protection of his or her rights under the Constitution.
And the president will not obey. And his minions will not
Yeah.
obey the order of the Supreme Court. You know, there is a statement also of President Kennedy in his inaugural speech. Those who make peaceful revolutions impossible